to use more than the basic amounts will pay for the extra they use. And it's a really crucial set of ideas, two core ideas in this promise, which was then part and parcel of the ANC winning a substantial vote and getting more excitement for its candidates in the year 2000. The two features I think are crucial: a universal entitlement, so everyone gets the free water, electricity, regardless of income, consistent with the Bill of Rights. The Constitution gives a right to a clean environment. Secondly, that those who consume more should pay more will imply cross-subsidization, because if you use a lot, you should be paying a much higher luxury tax, which would, I hope, be so high that it becomes prohibitive and really force conservation as well, and then give you the extra surplus to cross-subsidize. And so you'd rejig the ways in which pricing works. You don't get the prices right according to the cost, but you get it right according to society and the environment. Now, the reality is we still have big protests, more and more, because they've given token small amounts of water. There's a big lawsuit in the Johannesburg High Court just filed in December about that by Sowetans against big Suez, the Inez Dezo. It's not there anymore, but it, for 6 years was running Johannesburg's water. And electricity only 50 kilowatt hours per family per month, so it's just token, not enough. And the real problem, as I showed you, is that the big corporations get really cheap electricity for smelting and mining and for very capital-intensive industrial activity. So, so that's why people are right now really angry and shocked, especially when they open their electricity bill. And it is also the period when electricity bills are going to double, because the government's looking to put about $50 billion of new capital investments into it, building more coal-fired plants and more nuclear plants. So we're really seeing an extraordinary movement that began in about the year 2000 called the Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee, but all over South Africa, these municipal protests against electricity disconnections. When the prices go too high, people can't afford, what do but reconnect themselves? This is a woman who has got a prepaid meter. It should be attached to her house, you know, with wires going. Well, it's not anymore. She's ripped it out, or her friends have ripped it out. She's proud of that. And she's taking it with a whole bunch of others to a central place in Joburg, the city hall, and dumping them there, and maybe burning them if they can burn these meters. These prepaid meters are just awful. We are looking to ban them. On the water side, they're banned in England as a public health threat. But you run out and you've got no possibility of getting any electricity or water on credit. So a whole set of informal electricians and plumbers have come up. Some of them do it for money. The Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee just does it for free. And they go around and reconnect people. And basically there's graffiti all over. Destroy the meter, enjoy the water, enjoy the electricity. So it's a real movement. People like Naomi Klein have written celebratory articles about the Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee and the other partner groups in the social movements in Daba and the Anti-Privatization Forum. So I think that's one of the sort of inspirations. And when I know some of their activists go across Africa and motivate on water and electricity, they really have amazing reactions. Many of these struggles have the same kind of component parts, which I think are proto-socialist, in demanding decommodified social services. And in addition to fighting against the privatization of the air, the activists are fighting for land reform. And they did win this free antiretroviral medicines for over 400,000 people already, which is extraordinary. The government didn't want to give any ARVs. But they really had to fight our old friend Al Gore, because in 1999, he was putting pressure on South Africa not to do antiretroviral medicines by generic local production, and instead to buy the brand names. Because Al Gore was running for president and $2.3 million was going into his campaign coffers from big pharma. So the big pharmaceutical companies had the purchase on him. And then the Treatment Action Campaign, realizing this, that their problem wasn't just in Pretoria, but in Washington, D.C., the White House, said to their friends ACT UP in New York and Philly and Médecins Sans Frontières and Oxfam, go after these guys, go after these corporations and do some solidarity. And it just took 5 or 6 times where Al Gore was doing his preliminary campaigning in New Hampshire for primaries, and And he goes out, and there's activists. Al Gore's greed kills African babies. Big signs. And they keep showing up again and again. And soon, it's costing him more than $2.3 million to have these damn guys out there with their signs. And so he then says, oh, okay, you win. And even Clinton at the Seattle World Trade Organization also backed down on their previously kind of rigid neoliberal insistence on protecting intellectual property rights of their corporation. So in the Doha WTO meeting in 2001, they did a bigger exemption for medicines for emergencies. And you remember in 2001 when there was an anthrax threat, you're trying to get the antidote, and it was impossible because it was patented. And then I think understood just how crucial this huge battle to decommodify and also to deglobalize capital to bring production of generic medicines into Uganda, into Harare. I mean, it's amazing. We do now have huge numbers of people who earlier would have looked at bills of $20,000 US a year to buy ARVs, and now they are actually free. So it's an extraordinary advance. It's world historic, I think, is defeating apartheid. And free water, and there's free electricity, at least a kilowatt hour, free basic education, nationalizing the telecommunications sector again, and just prohibiting services disconnections, evictions, a basic income grant. Everybody should be entitled to 15 Canadian dollars a month equivalent, according to churches, the right to a job. These are all active campaigns by radical and civil society groups, trade unions, civic groups, community groups, women's groups, youth. They're all basically looking for universal entitlements, basically saying tax the rich, luxury taxes on hedonistic consumption, and linking it through, hopefully it's still to be done, because these are discrete campaigns, I think just like in Toronto, single issue NGOs and movements, and they don't really cut across their silos, they're just stuck in, right? We all have that sort of problem. But this would be the hope that a World Social Forum politics could emerge that would connect the dots and use decommodification, the deglobalization of capital as central themes to draw us all together, so that we don't have the problem we did in 2002, the red and the green going their different ways, different priorities, big business enjoying this. And I think, as I wanted to argue, the post-Bali, it's clear, to get the U.S. in, and it's not going to be much different if it's Obama's president, would require so much watering down of a genuine struggle to get emissions massively reduced that we can't really expect this to be done at the scale of kind of global governance in the Kyoto Protocol. We've got instead global apartheid, global climate apartheid, and that means it has to be resisted with all our energies in discrete solidarity where necessary with the Nigerian Delta women, with the indigenous people of the Sunni National Park in Rafael, Korea, and the Parkland Institute and the indigenous people out in Alberta, and wherever we can find these struggles to keep the oil in the soil and keep the resources in the ground. I just gathered there was a wonderful campaign against uranium not too far from here in Arnok. Yeah, so these are the sorts of campaigns that really, I think, to aggregate them so that we can develop a contestation of global climate apartheid from below, and using national states whenever we can capture them. But I must confess, the one place where this argument went down like a lead balloon last July was Venezuela, in Caracas, with the Canadian comrade Michael Leibovitz, who invited me and David Barkin, the Mexican environmentalist, to sort of address this group he works with, Centro Internacional Miranda, trying to say, well, compañeros, leave your oil in the soil. What? Fred, we're trying to build petro-socialism. So we have a little work to do there, but I think the rest of the project looks at least coherent if we can at least resist the idea that the market solution will solve the market problem, and instead find something more durable in decommodification and deglobalization to get real climate justice. Thank you, comrades. Yeah.